All right, guys, we are in the home stretch here. So the final part of your speech will be that conclusion element. You need to make some final statements that really start to wrap up your speech, but also include something called a CTA, or call to action. Now, I will include the link to the video that we watched in class, so you can watch that in your own time if you'd like a little bit of a refresher. It's important to be thinking about these core elements. Why do we employ a call to action? What can you reasonably ask of your audience? And what kind of language should you use in this part of your speech? Finally, where should it be located? Of course, we know it's going to be in that final speech, so at the end or near the end. But we're essentially talking about something small, something specific that you are asking your audience to do after your speech to move the needle forward towards a solution. This is something that should be totally relevant to your topic, totally relevant to your purpose, what you actually want to accomplish, but it should also be pretty specific to who your audience is. Now, here are a few more tips to think about as you start this process of wrapping up your speech. One of my favorite ways to create this nice sense of unity within a piece of writing is to actually link back to your opener in your conclusion. So if you started with a little bit of a story, perhaps you want to finish by revisiting that story in some way. Maybe if you started with a nice metaphor, maybe we'll want to sort of call back to that same kind of metaphor and create this essential bookend to your speech. It's really clever. Not only does it really help to tie the speech together, but it creates this sense of completeness. Now, we also want to think about what we effectively need to do, which is to repeat and to summarize your message. Now, we don't need to go point by point, but we should definitely have a sense of, okay, here's my distinct point of view. This is how I feel about it. We're kind of revisiting those core elements, but definitely not a real in-depth summary. Last but not least, we want to cap it off with that call to action. It's important that we do have some request of our audience, but we want to remember that the most effective calls to action are simple, they're specific, and they're small. If you're looking for some inspiration as you begin writing this portion of your speech, I would love to direct you towards speeches such as Obama's 2008 victory speech, where he ends on this beautifully inspirational and resounding use of epiphora. Yes, we can, if you remember it. It's a great piece to kind of circle back to and try to recreate within your own piece of writing. Mary Fisher's A Whisper of AIDS is also really, really wonderful, in that she keeps this extended metaphor of a whisper, right? This idea of sort of downplaying something really significant all the way through her speech. And then she, of course, finishes with this beautiful play upon that very same metaphor. So two great things to look to. Let's also take a look at some student models, what their conclusions look like. Now, we always want to make sure that we are examining our models in reference to the same rubric criteria that you'll be graded on. So let's go ahead and check that out now. Our rubric says that your conclusion and CTA should include a concluding statement that logically or emotionally prompts his or her audience to action through a powerful, memorable call to action. We also want to make sure that our final remarks create a clear sense of closure to the speech. Okay, so we're looking for either the use of logic or emotion, maybe even both, to motivate our audience through a CTA. That's part one. And then last, we want to make sure that the writer has achieved a clear sense of conclusion, that to our minds and to our ears, this speech sounds like it's over. It's come to a close. Let's take a look at our model on the board. Aphantasia, the condition that keeps the mind's eye closed, leaving those with this condition to wander blindly through life, using the small amount of knowledge that they manage to gather, asking, begging for more insight, what has taken away their sight. What had they done to deserve to never be able to remember memories of loved ones, childhood, even who they are. Even with this pain, society sees it as a deception, so people feel special or unique, just a ploy to get attention. Doctors, now is your time to help the aphasiacs whose cries have gone unheard for so long. Will you continue to let them sit in turmoil, or will you choose to hear their calls and help? All right, so think to yourself, what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses of this particular closing? I would say definitely one of its strengths are its strong use of pathos. You can hear within the beautiful metaphorical language, almost hyperbolic in some sense, the very strong emotional connection that this writer has to this particular problem. So I think that's really, really good. We do have some clarity issues just in the grammar of the sentences. So we want to make sure that we're always really, really revising with a nice fine-tooth comb to make sure that things are not, that we don't have like simple errors that take away from the power of our words. We do have the speaker clearly address her audience by calling out doctors. And I think it's really clever that they've sort of combined their CTA with a rhetorical question as well. Really, really clever, powerful, definitely room for a little bit of refinement, but I think a great example of a closing. Let's take a look at another. This writer says, what exactly can we do to reduce our carbon emissions though? We can change this ecosystem that is screaming for help by making slight adjustments to our daily routine. Instead of driving to the convenience store 5 minutes away, you can ride a bike or walk there. Instead of driving separately to the same workplace, you can carpool with your coworkers. Another option is to drive an electric car, and that has almost no carbon emissions compared to the regular car. The technology that used to make electric cars can be implemented in almost any form of transportation. Whether you drive an electric car or adjust your daily commute, you are changing the future. Some really nice things going on here. We've definitely got a very clear call to action, which I think is wonderful. Some very concrete examples of what the audience can actually do to make a change. Several of them are very simple, very specific, right? Ride a bike if you're going a short distances versus driving a car. But then maybe also some big asks like, hey, if it's within your means, think about switching to an electric vehicle over a gasoline vehicle. We also have this nice, very positive, inspirational tone at the end where we say that the technology, that whether you drive an electric car or adjust your daily commute, any of these changes, big or small, is making an impact for the better. So I love that nice positive tone, which I think is very, very important when you're trying to convince people to change a particular behavior. So here's some examples that hopefully give you a little bit of inspiration moving forward. Good luck finding that nice closure. Just like your opening is very important, we also want to find a really nice closing as well. Imagine these are the last words that your audience is going to hear from you, so we want to make them really, really, really poignant.